Hello, I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and welcome to my vlog, where it is both my mission and simultaneous pleasure to highlight my creative journey in hopes of inspiring you and giving you specific takeaway, all with the intent that your journey can be at least a little bit easier. Now, before I fully dive into everything, allow me to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. That way you get all the various lessons and episodes that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you just did, and thank you if you already were. It truly does mean a lot to me, as I hope it does to you. So, one kind of quick thing right off the bat, this next 2 weeks, I won't be putting out as many episodes as I normally do. That's simply because I'm in preparation for LA Comic-Con. We're hosting a panel, me and my team, about our animation process, and for me, I always try to have it be very educational. And so what we've been doing is kind of creating this rundown of everything we want to share, and even the things that we won't have time to share for. We want to include resources, links, and all kinds of stuff, because we realize people aren't there to come see us. I'm not Robert Downey Jr., right? That's all well and good. People are there to, learn something essentially, right? And so I want to make sure it's as informative as possible. And so, a lot of time and effort will be going into that in the next 2 weeks. And I've been putting together slides and things of that nature. And we also want to do some roll-in videos because we have AV capabilities and all these kind of different things. So a lot of effort will be going into that. Now, fear not, because it won't be a waste for you, because even if you're not at Comic-Con LA, we will, as we have done in the past, we will record this and then we will put it all up so that way you can see it firsthand and so forth. So I'm very excited about that. I just kind of wanted to highlight the programming, update as we are. So wanted to talk about that. And of course, I'll get into some of the other stuff that, of course, behind the scenes, has been going into this whole project. So, certainly the immediate kind of deadline, it's certainly very public facing, right? So a lot of the other deadlines are sort of self-imposed, but we don't have to necessarily show the work to anybody else. We want to, meet those deadlines, but it's not as imperative as having something for Comic-Con LA, right? So deadlines, of course, are a good motivator to get shit done, right? But one of the things I wanted to talk about specifically today, that's, I think, very important, and certainly I want to get in my episodes as deep as I can with some of this stuff. And what I mean by that is, I try to balance the things that I put out with a mix of how-to and specifics, but also underscoring that none of the tactics matter unless you have a mental fortitude. And I don't mean that in the hard ass of like, okay, just, hide your feelings, shrug everything off. I mean it in the truer spiritual, if you will, sense, where you cultivate yourself as much as you do your art and anything else in life. And the reason I'm saying that is because, in this past week, in the past few weeks alone, it's been very interesting. Maybe that's not the right phrase, but something's happening where a lot of people are dealing with all kinds of stuff. And, we're all dealing with all kinds of stuff at any given moment, sure. But death in particular, I don't know what it is, or like true emergencies, right? So a lot of death, but also true emergencies. Whether it's pets passing away, parents passing away, grandparents, other loved ones, or just people having to go to the hospital and things of that nature. For whatever reason, something's in the water, if you will, or it's certainly, in my circle of friends, this is the stuff that they're dealing with. And of course, that's very hard. And so I try to not only send goodwill to the people that I know, but also have an action with it, even if it's small, right? So I had a friend that was in the hospital, and, it wasn't her that was dealing with the issue, but meaning like she wasn't directly the one affected by it, but she was, caretaking and stuff like that. And I said, hey, listen, I know you're going through a lot. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine, if there's anything I can ease, your life with, let's say, if I can Postmates you food or, do some grocery shopping for, like, let me know, right? Just something, right? And I let her know, like, it's not an empty gesture, like, please take me up on it. Even something, it's odd to give these, like, sort of rankings of how serious something is versus not, but I know somebody that recently got laid off, and they were really blindsided by it. They're of course very talented, and I know they'll land on their feet, but that doesn't make the immediate not suck. And the advice that I told this person, I said, hey, listen, whether it's me or anyone else, like, you're a very kind person. You're always there for other people. Don't be afraid to receive that kindness. And I know you don't generally ask for things, but allow people that love you to show you that in this moment, And so if you feel like you need something, like, reaching out to somebody like, hey, can you put me in touch with this person? Or I'm looking for this type of job, like, whatever it is. And oftentimes we think that, we don't want to be a burden, but in the grand scheme of things, the true people that are meant for you in that way won't see it as a burden, because they will want to genuinely help. And if they truly can't because they're dealing with something humongous on their side, then I think they'll still do what they can, And yeah, we would be surprised, just we think we have to have these grand acts and whatever, but just the simple things do matter. For one of the funerals, there was a Facebook post of, essentially ways you can contribute, whether it's flowers or something else. And, it was a Facebook link and enough people saw it, but I knew that some of the other people that know the family affected probably wouldn't see it. So I was like, you know what? Let me just take charge, at least of this, and just, I copied the link and I sent it out to the various people that I knew that knew them. And I said, hey, not sure if you saw this, but here's a link and here's, whatever else. And people were grateful for that because, then they contributed and stuff like that. And of course, then the family feels that goodwill. And, one of the nice parts about that was there was an option of like, okay, you can send flowers, or you can essentially purchase a tree in the name of the deceased. And that felt pretty meaningful. So I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. That, flowers, of course, nice. I'm not taking anything away, but it felt like the longevity of a tree is, it's going to be there for far longer, right? And to me, it has kind of like a greater effect. We're replanting trees, so. Now, to tie it back to what I was talking about earlier about the mental fortitude, I think at any given moment, cliche as it is, you just don't know what people are going through. So I think having some grace for people and, trying to really be there for them in that way. And then it's one of those things that I know how tough these people are. And it's never easy to go through any of these things, but the more you sort of work on things within your soul, let's say, it's not that dealing with these things is easier, but perhaps you can navigate it a little bit simpler, let's say. And that's kind of really what it's all about. And it can make quite a difference, right? And even when we're not talking about life and death or, serious stuff, but even just being an actor, let's say, that has to deal with auditions and a near constant rejection level, that wears on you. And so how do you keep going through all of that, right? One of the big milestones of this past week was completing a draft of this animated feature script, the one, that bases the work that we've been doing and, that kind of will be highlighting at LA Comic-Con. But anyway, the script, I've done many iterations of it, but it's never felt fully succinct. It's by the end, certainly, it felt like the wheels came off the wagon. There was tons of stray subplots that didn't go anywhere, this and that. And finally, with the script, I know that it's not perfect. I know there's going to be changes needed. I mean, just in and of itself, it's 124 pages, which for a movie that you're going to kind of make yourself isn't the end all be all, but when you're trying to attract financiers and stuff like that, really getting it to like 120 does make a difference. And so finding ways to compress it, and there are things I'm sure that can be compressed. And while for the most part, things work in tandem, there are things that get a little stranded, in terms of ideas and subplots, and but now they're a lot easier to fix. It's like they veered off course just by a little bit, and now all of a sudden, you got branching things left and right. And obviously, in comparison to what I've been talking about, it's a less serious thing, but it's taken well over a year to really just get to this point, and what I'm calling like the official first draft, And I remember talking with Sarah Stretton during one of our story session meetings, and she was, I kept saying, because I do feel this weight that, like, there's so many people that are working on this project, and Sarah and John Comerford in particular have been really putting in a lot of time and effort to help me develop the story, and I do feel this weight of, like, I wish I was a better writer in some sense, that we would be at this place faster. And, they're very kind and whatnot. And obviously, I in my heart of hearts, I know they believe in this project. And it was Sarah who said, well, you've stuck with it. And there's a lot to love. And, whereas other people would have given up. And I know that to be true. Right? Like, writing is rewriting in many ways. Every writer can say this. I imagine other writers rewrite less than I have to rewrite. But that's part of the process, and I accept it. And part of the big component of it, what was so difficult and how this more directly ties to what I've been talking about, is for me, when I begin a story, there's a question at its core that I'm exploring. And so by the end, you kind of have to answer that question. And in this sense, it's a very deep and somewhat dark question. And I wanted to provide an answer. Not in a didactic way, but in an honest way that felt true to the telling of the story, being a show, not tell. And when you write stories, for me at least, the characters take on certain traits of myself, right? And so the main character in that way is exploring that question. So she is my, surrogate, if you will, to this question. And it's one of those things that you love your main character, but in order to have the story be as compelling as possible, you have to obviously push them quite a bit along. And so, you kind of have to make the main character's life a living hell. Okay, well, that part over time I could figure out and do. But the real question was how to then have them do what I wanted them to do in the end that fit. Like, in some sense, it started off with a question, and I knew the answer I wanted to get to, but none of it felt organic. And you start to wonder of like, okay, well, what does that say about me? Because when you think about it, right, a truly well-told story, the main character's last action reveals something about them and about humanity, right? It is the capital T truth. So no matter what we've watched before then, that they may have said, I'm not such and such person, or I don't want to do this, like, that final act will reveal what type of person they are. Whether all the things that they've been talking about is bullshit or not. And it will change them for better or for worse. And that, for me, that was a difficult journey to explore that. That's what made it difficult in terms of writing, was that whole aspect of it. But finally, I got it to a place that I feel like, okay, now we're close. Now we're close. Now when someone reads it, it's not perfect, but it's not an embarrassment of like, wait, what happened? I don't get it, right? Someone can see that. And to the script's credit, there's always been elements that people have been drawn to. I mean, my entire team, they read the script in its very earlier iteration, and they decided to join the project based on that version because they saw enough there that they were like, okay, I don't quite understand it. Yes, it's all over the board, but if this comes together, it could be really cool. And to my credit, I guess, they also recognize that I would push it forward and it wouldn't just end there, So that's very exciting. Another kind of element of this last week was through the college that I went to, Emerson College. There's an online platform where kids can reach out to alumni and stuff like that. And so there was someone that had reached out to me for guidance, for mentorship. They're newly out of college, I think by like 3 months or something like that. And I tried to really answer this person's questions and stuff like that. But what's always very interesting to me, I think it goes both ways. When you're younger, starting off in your career, it's like you want something very prescriptive of like, okay, what do I do and how do I become successful? And I think part of that is also there's a lot of people out there, and I'm not saying that some of them aren't giving good advice, I'm not saying that, but there is this default to just give, okay, you want to be a filmmaker, here's how to do it. And I try very hard not to do that because I think there are many paths. I don't think there's just one solution. I think there's core principles, and I can highlight those. Like, I have a lot of friends, let's say they want to be hosts, but they aren't hosting. It's like, the irony is I do more hosting than them, or hosts, right? Like that's the crazy part to me. So I think you have to, there's a core tenet of like, whatever you're trying to pursue, you kind of have to find a way to keep that flame burning in whatever way that you can. But beyond that, and again, there's other tenets and principles that apply, but to just say like, oh, here's exactly, step 1, step 2, step 3, exactly, and go and do that, I don't think is honest, right? So, yeah, and that can make things a little bit difficult, right? And so I think we had a good chat and stuff like that, but it's something that I do consider. It's like, in some ways, you want to certainly be the rah, you got this sort of thing, but I don't want to force a misstep onto anyone, certainly. So it's all very interesting to me, and I think, like all things in life, if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. There's other paths forward. There's a phrase that I learned not too long ago where it's not about making the right decision. It's about making the decision right for you. So whatever choice you make, go with it. And I think that's the other thing, something that I learned very early on, was this idea that certainly in American culture, we look at choice as a freedom. Like if we have choice, then we're free. Freedom really is a commitment to a choice, because you can have choice overload, analysis paralysis, right? That's what we call it. And, you'll misstep here and there and things like that. Like, I think, one of the sort of takeaways that I see in younger generations is they want to make sure that their path is perfect. And it's like, I'm not advocating this, but, I've certainly been taken advantage of and this and that. And you don't wish that upon somebody else, but it has served me. And, it's like sort of all things in life of, if you don't take a shot at dating, then, just because you don't want your heart broken, it's like, well, then you'll never experience love, right? It's like you kind of have to make some of these mistakes. And I know we sort of don't view it as such because society's like, oh, when you're in 20s, you don't want to make mistakes and this and that. And it's like, your 20s are kind of for making mistakes. Like, it's okay. Now, you don't want to make egregious errors, right? I'm not saying do illegal stuff and yada yada, or just burn bridges left and right. But I think, if in your heart of hearts you try something and it's not what you thought it was and it's not working for you, you're not, whatever it is, like it can be just as simple as like, oh, you thought something was going to be this way and it's like, you know what, that's not for me, but thank you. Or, something all of a sudden turns heinous, like get the hell out of there, right? Then those are the kinds of things that you just go, you adjust as you go. To the extent that you can, right? It's, we all just try to do our best navigating everything. The one thing I will say is try to honor your commitments. With the exception of, you're thrown into a situation that's toxic, that's bad for your health, that's, let's say illegal, whatever it is, in that respect. Apart from that, I think one criticism I have, and it's not just of young people, I see this with, let's say, millennials, older people, like this idea that we just don't honor commitments anymore. Just very recently, there's someone who is signed on for a 1-year contract to do some hosting. And, I think they have 4 or 5 months left, let's say. And now they're trying to get out of it. Well, why? Because I'm sure there's a bigger, better offer. But it's like, okay, that's fine. But the ownership has to be on you to rectify that because this was the deal. And this is not the first example of this person not honoring their commitments. And again, it's not a situation where, they signed up to do, let's say, 20 hours of hosting, but they're all of a sudden hosting 100 hours a week or something like that. In fact, they're hosting far less than they committed to. And it's as easy as they, can be feasibly made, and yet they're dropping the ball. And that's something that I just don't have a respect for, if I'm being quite frank, because that's bullshit. Like when something new comes along, that's great. It's a byproduct of, all your hard work, whether it's this current thing or everything else. But, you committed to something and then you can't just put the ownership on everyone else to get you out of it. It's like, if you want out of this, then you have to make it work. Or you just legitimately honor that commitment. So that's something for me, I've never, whatever I commit to, that's it, I see it out. Or again, if truly it came to it, let's say, something came up, I'm in the world of podcast editing in terms of, day to day, what I do and what pays the bills. If I truly couldn't continue for someone that had hired me, I wouldn't leave them hanging. I would find a replacement and I would train that replacement and I would get everyone comfortable so that way my absence, there were no growing pains. And I think people don't foresee, when we talk about burning bridges, not that that's an outright burning of the bridge, but how much of a stain that can have if you just, I'm done. So, another core tenet, honor your commitments. Again, with the exception of all the really obvious stuff of why, I gotta get the hell out of here. No, this is not what I signed up for. This is egregious, yada, yada, yada. Okay? All right. Shifting gears slightly, one of the things that we're going to be preparing for is now pitching the animated feature film. And there's an opportunity to submit pitches to the American film market where you can be selected and then be presented. You essentially get picked to present on stage your project to all kinds of people, and this is a major thing, and it's a perk of us getting the badges, right? So we will be going to the American film market, but we sprung for slightly higher badges, so that way we can get kind of more things, be able to attend more events, and this is one of those perks. And last week we had discussed of, okay, do we do this? Will we be looked at negatively? So by the letter of the rules, one participant can send in one submission, but we have 3 submissions that we can send. And so we essentially asked them, is this in the spirit if 3 of us submit essentially for this, like literally for the same project? And they said, yes, that's not frowned upon. Totally go for it. So we're going to do that. And, this is one of those things that when I sort of look at and going to the next sort of level, this is part of it, because in all reality, I might not be chosen, right? None of our team might be chosen, I don't know. But someone else from my team might be chosen, and that's great. And it's not like you can then swap out that. Nor would I really want that. And for some of the members, this would be sort of a newer experience. And there's some hesitation, there's a nervousness around it, right? But I think it's a worthwhile challenge, because I know not only will it serve this project well, but it will serve them well, and I look at part of this whole project is for all of us to enter the next level of our careers. We're going to be working with financiers, investors, potentially studios. This is not a movie that I can self-finance. And so that requires something different. And, for me, it requires coming out of my comfort zone in many ways. And, the other aspect of last week was trying to figure out, we're bringing this person on board to help kind of consult with us, and they can do a lot for us. But, doing it in such a way, I always look at it, okay, how do I minimize the downside while having potential for a lot of upside? It's like investing. That's kind of my philosophy on investing, and that's how I approach things. And so, I was really looking at how do we structure a deal like that, because I didn't want to just sign away a lot of things, not necessarily in a hope and a prayer, but like I said, just like all things, good investing is minimize the risk while having a potential for a huge upside. And so this is kind of an investment, right? Like we've been putting a lot of time, effort, and money into this, and we want to make this. So yeah, we approached it in that way, and we got there. I think now it's in a place I'm like, okay, this works. This puts me at ease, right? But it all goes back to the idea that, there's going to be a level of, I'm not deal negotiating on an everyday basis. And, right now, I don't have the support of agents, managers, and lawyers. And so it's like, you don't want to misstep, but at a certain point you have to take a step forward with something, because otherwise you won't grow, right? And so that's what the pitch videos are all about as well. So I'm looking forward to that collective challenge, right? And I think Comic-Con will be, as odd as it is to say, a nice little warm-up to, shake off any stage fright that might exist. I think it'll be really fun. So, yeah, I look forward to it. So, yeah, that's kind of the long and short of things. As always, if you have any questions about anything that I talked about or something you'd like me to talk about that I haven't talked about, please just comment down below or hit me up on social media at Phil Svitek, and I will try to certainly get to it when I can. Thank you as always. I truly do appreciate you. Hope to see you next time.